Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into the evolution of the global financial order, specifically, the rise and fall of the US led neocolonial financial system, starting with the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference. It's like, the roots of today's global economy, all set up back then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. The whole idea that the US dollar became the global reserve currency after Bretton Woods really reshaped international trade and finance, right?
Exactly. At Bretton Woods, the major powers essentially agreed on a system that made the US dollar the linchpin of international finance.
Yeah,
It centralized power in a way that was revolutionary at the time.
right. And then fast forward to 1971 when Nixon pulled the plug on the gold standard. That move, which we now call the Nixon shock, completely upended the structure that was set at Bretton Woods. It
Yeah,
created room for so many shifts in economic policies.
yeah, the Nixon shock really marked a turning point. Removing the gold backing meant that currencies began to float based on market dynamics rather than a fixed standard. And that paved the way for what we eventually call neoliberalism, with free markets and less regulated finance.
Right, and then you have the subsequent crises, like the Volcker shock and the Third World Debt crisis, which essentially exposed some deep vulnerabilities in that US led order. These shocks
Absolutely.
rattled economies worldwide.
Exactly. It felt kind of like a domino effect. The changes in monetary policy led to a wave of economic challenges across the globe. And while the US maintained its dominance for quite some time, these events also laid the groundwork for alternative systems to emerge.
Hmm. And that's where the rise of China and the consolidation of the BRICS bloc come in, isn't it? It's like a shift in the balance of power from a unipolar US dominated order to a more multipolar world with real challenges to that dominance.
Yes, precisely. The emergence of BRICS is the global south collectively saying, hey, we've got our own way of influencing the world's financial future. And that's a direct response to the old system, which, frankly, many felt was neocolonial in nature.
I mean, it's interesting because while the Bretton Woods system was touted as a cooperative framework after World War II, it did, in many ways, embed power imbalances that echoed neocolonial practices. It laid a
Absolutely.
foundation that benefited the West disproportionately.
Right, exactly. The system was rigged in favor of the US, and you could argue that it was a form of economic imperialism. Critics say it was like, well, setting up a global playground where the US got to make the rules, and that led to many of the challenges we see today.
Yeah, and then with the coming of neoliberal policies, which pushed for deregulation and privatization, this order got even more entrenched. But there was also a growing pushback from the global south, which felt sidelined by these policies.
Right, exactly. You see, neoliberalism became almost synonymous with the Washington Consensus, where economic policies were being pushed that prioritized free market doctrines, sometimes at the expense of local development. And that created a sort of backlash that now fuels movements like the BRICS.
I appreciate that point. Yet, I do wonder if there might be some oversimplification here. I mean, wasn't there an argument that neoliberal policies also spurred high economic growth and innovation in various regions? How do we balance those benefits with the criticisms?
Yeah, that's a great observation. I mean, it's a double edged sword. On one side, neoliberal policies did encourage market efficiency and innovation, but on the other side, they also increased inequalities and left many nations vulnerable to external shocks. It's a
Yep.
nuanced issue.
Right. And looking at it from today's perspective, the rise of China and the BRICS bloc is not just about economic might, but also a rebalancing of global influence. It's a political statement as much as an economic one.
Indeed, and it's also about challenging a century old
Yeah.
order. You could say the financial system is now in a sort of tug of war between the legacy of US dominance and new power centers emerging in the global south.
And interestingly enough, the narrative around BRICS often paints it as a more inclusive, counter-hegemonic approach. But do you think that's entirely accurate?
Well, it's complicated. I mean, while BRICS does represent a collective that pushes for more multipolarity, it's not without its internal challenges. There's a lot of debate about how cohesive they really are in practice.
Exactly. There are inherent challenges in aligning the interests of such a diverse group of nations, each with its own economic model and political agenda. But the fact that these debates are out in the open is itself a sign that the old order is being questioned.
Right, and that questioning is healthy for global governance. It forces everyone to rethink practices that for decades were taken as norms. After all, if a system was so uneven, why hasn't it evolved sooner?
Yeah, that's a good point. But I also wonder, with the volatility we've seen in both the old order and the emerging alternatives, what does that mean for the future of global finance? Are we heading toward more stability or greater uncertainty?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like a pendulum swinging between established power and reform. On one hand, the financial systems are resilient, but on the other hand, the cracks are showing. It really all comes down to
Yeah.
who adapts more effectively in the changing global landscape.
And it's not just about economic policies, but also a matter of trust and perception. The narrative around US-led capitalism versus, say, a more inclusive global approach is hugely influential in shaping policies at the national level.
Right, you are. Narratives are powerful. They can justify policies that consolidate power or fuel reforms that aim for greater equity. And the switch from a US centric system to a diversified one, like BRICS, speaks volumes about shifting global trust networks.
Absolutely. It's like moving from a monopoly to a more competitive market structure. But on the note of competition, don't you think that the US system still holds an edge in terms of deep financial markets and established institutions?
Yeah, that's a very valid critique. The US financial system, despite its flaws, has a kind of inertia built into it due to its size and sophistication. It's like an old engine that's been overhauled but still runs despite some issues.
True, and that makes any shift away from it a gradual and messy process. The structural foundations are deeply entrenched. However, it's clear that the landscape is slowly diversifying. The BRICS ambitions show that alternative models are not just rhetoric, they're becoming operational.
I agree, and even if there's resistance from the existing order, change is in the wind. Think about it. Global dynamics evolve. You know, it's like the financial system is having a long, drawn out power struggle. And what we're witnessing is the gradual emergence of a new balance of power.
Yeah, and it's a struggle that, while inevitably turbulent, might eventually lead to more fair representation of different economies in global financial governance. It's a fascinating evolution to watch.
Absolutely. It creates a sort of dynamism that forces institutions and nations alike to rethink their strategies. And while there will be, no doubt, growing pains along the way, the dialogue around these shifts is crucial. It challenges us to envision a
Indeed.
world order that's more multipolar and potentially more equitable.
And, you know, it's almost poetic in a way. The cyclic nature of history. What builds up over decades can eventually unravel, making space for something entirely new. Yet, I wonder, could the emerging systems learn from the shortcomings of the old US-led order?
That's a great question. I think, ideally, yes. The hope is that by acknowledging the imbalances and inequities of the past, the new models, like what BRICS is striving for, can incorporate mechanisms for more balanced growth. But it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's always the challenge of translating theory into practice. Plus, entrenched interests on all sides can slow down such progress considerably.
Right? I mean, policymakers face the enormous task of retrofitting systems that have been in place for over 70 years and trying to accommodate broader global perspectives. It's like you're trying to rebuild a ship while still sailing it.
That's a perfect analogy. And it's that continuous balancing act between legacy and innovation that keeps the entire debate fresh and, frankly, unpredictable.
Exactly. And embracing that unpredictability means that we have to stay adaptable, always ready to re examine our assumptions. That's where cutting edge research and debates in geopolitics become so essential.
Right. And it also underscores the importance of global dialogue. We're all part of this system, be it in the global north or south, and understanding these shifts is key to navigating the future.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that financial orders, like all institutions, evolve over time through a mixture of systemic shocks and innovative responses. And this evolution, from Bretton Woods to BRICS, tells us that no order is immutable.
Yeah.
It's constantly in flux, always challenging us to rethink our place in it.
Well put. And as we wrap up, it seems clear that while the US led neocolonial order has its legacy of structured power, its gradual decay and the rise of alternative blocs signal a broader, more inclusive global future, one that will undoubtedly be rocky but promising.
Exactly, and that hope, combined with a realistic understanding of the challenges ahead, is what makes this discussion so exciting. Thanks for this enlightening conversation. Looking forward to seeing where all these shifts take us next.
Yeah, definitely. Always fascinating to peel back the layers of global finance. Until next time.